The sun was a burning orange ball in the sky, setting the vast Iranian desert on fire. The wind whispered like it carried secrets from another world. In a small village near the edge of the mountains, 4 friends, Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima, were walking quietly along a dusty path. Their hearts were heavy, not with the heat, but with fear. Rumors had spread that Christians in the area were being hunted. They had always prayed in secret, gathering in hidden rooms at night, but now danger was closing in like a shadow they could not escape. Aram, the oldest of the 4, tried to keep their spirits up. "We must trust," he whispered, "even when everything seems dark." His voice trembled, but his eyes were firm. Ladan, the youngest, held her small Bible tightly, her fingers shaking. "What if they find us?" she whispered. The desert around them seemed to answer, the sand shifting as if warning them to run, but there was nowhere to hide. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps, harsh and fast, broke the silence. 4 men appeared from behind the rocks. They were armed and their faces were hard, twisted with anger. "You are coming with us," one said. Aram stepped in front of the others, trying to protect them. But there was no reasoning. The friends were dragged toward the village square, where the people had gathered. Fear wrapped around their hearts like chains. The town's executioner, a cruel man named Aram, had prepared a large tree in the middle of the square. Its branches stretched wide, and ropes dangled like the fingers of a giant hand waiting to crush them. The villagers were silent. No one dared to speak. Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima were tied to the ropes. Their legs dangled, their hands raw from struggling, and their hearts beat so loudly that they thought it might be heard by everyone. As Aram lifted the ropes, preparing to hang them, the sky began to change. A wind rose from nowhere, strong and sudden. It swept through the village like an invisible hand. Sand spun in the air, and the branches of the tree swayed violently, as if the tree itself were alive. The crowd gasped. The 4 friends' faces were pale with fear, yet in that moment, a strange calm entered their hearts. Aram whispered, "Jesus, help us." Ladan, trembling, added, "Please, save us." Kaveh and Nima joined, their voices small but full of hope. Then, something no one could explain happened. The ropes tightened, yet their bodies did not rise. The wind grew louder, circling around them, and the branches of the tree seemed to bend protectively, not cruelly. The men holding the ropes stumbled. The crowd watched, frozen, as the impossible unfolded. Aram's heart pounded, but it was no longer with fear, it was with wonder. "He's here," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "He's here with us." The desert held its breath, the sun dipped lower, and the world seemed suspended between fear and miracle. No one could move, no one could speak, and yet, in that quiet, powerful moment, everyone watching felt it. The invisible power of Jesus protecting the helpless, and the unexplainable miracle that was about to change everything. The ropes creaked under the weight of the 4 friends, yet their bodies hung suspended, not a single inch rising. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mixture of fear, confusion, and awe. Aram, the executioner, stomped his foot and shouted, "Pull them higher. Don't let them escape." But no matter how hard the men tugged, the ropes did not obey. It was as if an invisible hand held the friends safely in the air. Aram's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He glanced at Ladan, her small face wet with tears, and Kaveh, whose jaw was tight with terror. Nima, usually the calmest, was shaking violently, but his eyes glimmered with a strange light. "It's him," Aram whispered again. "He's protecting us." The wind had grown stronger, whipping through the square like a living creature. Dust and sand swirled around the onlookers, stinging their eyes. Yet strangely, the 4 friends were untouched. Their hair, their clothes, even their skin remained clean. It was as if a bubble of protection surrounded them, cutting through the chaos. The villagers were terrified but mesmerized. Mothers clutched their children, and elders muttered prayers under their breath. Aram screamed in frustration, "This is impossible. Pull harder." His hands were red and raw, but the ropes refused to budge. Sweat poured down his face, and the other men grew frantic. Fear was replacing anger, confusion replacing certainty. None of them understood what was happening, and the friends remained suspended, alive, untouched, as though the rules of the world had been rewritten. Aram closed his eyes and prayed silently. Jesus, give us strength. Let them see your power. Around them, a soft glow seemed to appear, invisible to most but felt by everyone. It was warmth in the chilling desert air, a calm in the storm of fear. Ladan's lips moved, whispering prayers she hadn't even known she knew. Kaveh and Nima joined, and their combined voices became a soft, trembling chorus of faith. Then it happened. A sudden flash of light streaked across the sky, brighter than the setting sun, casting long shadows over the square. The ropes loosened slightly, but the friends did not fall. Instead, they hovered, their feet inches above the ground. Gasps erupted from the crowd. People stumbled backward, some fell to their knees, and others ran in panic. None of it mattered. The miracle was real, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. Bahram's face turned pale. His confidence, once solid and terrifying, crumbled completely. He stumbled back, muttering, "No, this can't be." The men who had been holding the ropes dropped them, unable to hold on. The ropes fell slack, yet Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima remained suspended, calm and protected. The four friends looked at each other, eyes wide but filled with wonder. They could feel the presence of Jesus as if he was standing beside them, holding their hearts steady. Fear had turned into awe, terror into faith. "He is with us," Nima whispered. "And no one can take that away." The villagers, too, felt the shift. Their fear of punishment, of the unknown, was replaced by a strange, trembling hope. Many crossed themselves, whispered prayers, and even cried. Some could not explain why, but deep inside, they felt that something beyond this world had just intervened. Aram's gaze lifted to the sky. The sun dipped below the mountains, painting the desert with deep reds and purples. The wind slowed, and the swirling sand settled. The four friends floated gently, still safe, still alive, still untouched. And in that moment, everyone in the village understood. What they were witnessing was not of man, not of law, and not of fear. It was something far greater. It was a miracle. The desert air was thick with awe and fear. The villagers could not look away. Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima still floated above the ground, their bodies perfectly safe despite the ropes that should have dragged them down. Every heartbeat of theirs seemed to echo in the square, a rhythm of life that defied death itself. Aram looked down at the faces around him. He saw fear in some eyes, disbelief in others, but he also saw something new, wonder. People who had never spoken of Jesus aloud were now silently witnessing his power. Even Bahram, the executioner, who had been cruel and unshakable, now trembled. His hands shook, and his eyes darted nervously from the ropes to the four friends, unable to comprehend what was happening. Ladan, her small frame trembling, suddenly realized she was no longer afraid. "We're safe," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "We're really safe." Kaveh felt a warmth in his chest, spreading to every part of him, a feeling so strong he had never known before. Nima, usually quiet and reserved, began to pray aloud. "Thank you, Jesus, you are here. You are here with us." His voice, clear and steady, echoed over the square. The crowd watched, some kneeling, some gasping, some crossing themselves. The impossible was happening before their eyes. The ropes, which should have held the friends' full weight, were slack, yet they floated gently. The branches of the great tree swayed as if alive, bending around them protectively. Even the sun seemed to pause, casting long shadows that made the desert look magical, like a place out of time. Then, something even stranger occurred. Small birds, unnoticed before, began to circle the four friends. They chirped loudly, landing briefly on the branches above, as if celebrating. The wind picked up again, gentle this time, swirling around them like an invisible cloak. Sand danced in slow motion, glittering in the sunlight. The villagers held their breath. It was as if the desert itself had become part of the miracle, alive with unseen hands. Bahram stepped back, shaking his head. This isn't natural," he muttered. Fear overtook him completely, and he stumbled backward. The other men who had tried to hang the friends could not bring themselves to touch the ropes again. They whispered to each other, eyes wide with terror, unsure if they should run or stay. Aram's voice rose above the murmurs, calm and certain. "See, he is here. He has not left us. He will never leave those who believe." Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima joined in, their voices blending into a quiet, unstoppable chorus of faith. Their words carried a power that silenced even the whispers of fear around them. Suddenly, one of the ropes, the one tied to Kaveh, moved. Not downward, but upward, gently pulling him higher. His friends gasped, and the villagers stepped back in awe. Kaveh looked down at the crowd, his face calm and bright. "Do not be afraid," he called out. "He is here for all of us." Then, the most miraculous moment happened. The four friends began to rise slowly, not in panic or struggle, but as if lifted by invisible hands. The ropes twisted around them but did not harm them. They hovered higher than anyone imagined possible. The villagers watched in disbelief, hearts pounding, tears streaming from their eyes. Many fell to their knees, overwhelmed by what they were seeing. In that moment, time seemed to pause. Even the mountains in the distance were silent, as if holding their breath. The four friends floated like angels, safe and untouched, while the world below seemed both alive and still. Every eye in the village was fixed on them, and every heart knew the same truth: Jesus had performed a miracle that no one could explain. Aram whispered, "Hold on to faith, even in the darkest moments." Ladan added softly, "He will never abandon us." Kaveh's voice rang out like a bell, "He is here with everyone who believes." Nima, tears streaming down his face, simply repeated, "Thank you, Jesus, thank you." The wind shifted again, lifting the sand gently from the ground. The birds circled higher, singing, as if announcing the impossible truth to the world. And in that moment, everyone, villagers, executioners, and the four friends, understood one thing clearly: faith was stronger than fear, hope stronger than death, and Jesus' power greater than any force on earth. The desert square was silent, except for the soft wind and the chirping of birds circling above. Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima still floated, their bodies untouched, their faces calm. The villagers could hardly breathe, their eyes fixed on the impossible sight above them. Fear had turned into awe, and awe into an unshakable silence. Bahram, the executioner, stumbled backward. His hands shook violently, and the men who had held the ropes whispered among themselves, their confidence shattered. This is not possible," one muttered, voice trembling. "I've never seen anything like this in my life." But even as they spoke, the four friends floated higher, untouched, untouchable, as if lifted by invisible arms. Aram raised his hands toward the sky. "Look around you," he shouted. "This is not just for us. He is here for all who believe, all who have faith, all who pray, all who hope. He is with you." His voice, full of certainty and power, echoed across the desert. Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima joined him, their small voices growing louder together, forming a chorus of courage that filled the square. The villagers began to weep. Men, women, and children dropped to their knees, many whispering prayers they had never spoken before. Mothers clutched their children close, elders crossed themselves over and over. The fear that had gripped their hearts moments ago had vanished, replaced by a glowing hope that made their spirits lift as if they, too, could feel the miracle surrounding the four friends. Suddenly, the ropes began to glow faintly, golden in the fading sunlight. The tree itself seemed to bend toward them, its branches cradling the friends as if protecting them from the world below. Even the ground beneath the tree shimmered slightly, reflecting the colors of the sky. The villagers gasped in astonishment. None of this made sense, yet everyone felt the undeniable truth: this was a miracle beyond explanation. Bahram fell to his knees, trembling, staring at the floating friends. "Forgive me," he whispered, voice breaking. His men followed suit, some crossing themselves, others staring with disbelief. The cruelty and hatred that had once filled their hearts was gone, replaced by awe and fear of a higher power they could no longer deny. Aram looked at the executioner and his men. "It is not too late to change," he said calmly. "Do not be blinded by anger. Open your hearts. You can feel his presence now." Ladan nodded, adding softly, "He loves all of us, even those who were ready to harm us." Kaveh raised his voice, "Faith is stronger than fear." Nima, with tears in his eyes, whispered, "He is alive. He is real. He saves those who call on him." The four friends began to descend slowly, the glow of the ropes fading, their bodies gently lowering toward the ground. The villagers held their breath, watching the impossible end gently. When their feet finally touched the earth, a cheer erupted, though many cried instead of laughing. The miracle had completed, yet its power lingered in the air, thick as the desert wind. Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima stood together, hands clasped, faces shining. The villagers approached cautiously, unsure whether to touch or speak. Many fell to their knees before them, thanking Jesus for showing his power and mercy. Even Aram whispered prayers, tears streaming down his face. The fear that had ruled the village was gone. The impossible had become a reality, and the hearts of all who witnessed it had been forever changed. That night, under the desert sky glittering with stars, the villagers lit candles. They prayed together, sang together, and shared stories of hope and faith. Aram whispered to his friends, "We were chosen to show them that he never abandons anyone." Ladan smiled, feeling warmth in her heart that had nothing to do with the desert sun. Kaveh and Nima nodded, understanding that what had happened was not just a miracle, it was a message. The miracle of the hanging tree became a story told in whispers across villages. It was a story of fear broken by faith, of hate replaced by hope, and of 4 friends who trusted Jesus even in the face of death. And while the desert returned to silence, the memory of that impossible moment lingered in the hearts of all who had seen it. The desert night was calm, the stars sparkling like countless tiny lanterns scattered across the sky. The 4 friends, Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima, stood together in the village square, their hearts still pounding from the miracle they had lived. The ropes, once meant to hang them, lay useless on the ground. The great tree, which had been their prison and salvation, now stood silent and still, as if bowing to the impossible power that had protected them. The villagers gathered around, their eyes wide with wonder and hearts overflowing with gratitude. They had seen something they could never forget, something that no words could fully describe. Many whispered prayers, others crossed themselves, and some simply stared, unable to speak, their souls touched by the presence of Jesus. Even Aram, the executioner, stood trembling in the corner. He had faced cruelty and hatred all his life, but for the first time, he felt fear transformed into awe. Aram stepped forward, voice steady but gentle. "Tonight," he said, "we have seen that fear is not stronger than faith. Hate cannot overcome love, and even when the world seems dark, Jesus is with those who trust him." Ladan held her small Bible close, tears shining on her cheeks. "He saved us, not just from death, but from despair. He shows his power to those who open their hearts." Kaveh looked around at the villagers. "Do not let this miracle end here. Carry it with you. Let it guide your thoughts, your actions, your prayers. Faith can move mountains, and love can conquer fear." Nima added softly, "We have been given a gift, not just for ourselves, but for all of you. Believe, and you will see his presence in your own lives." For many in the village, this night changed everything. Families who had been divided by fear and suspicion embraced one another. Children, who had hidden from the shadow of danger, laughed freely under the stars. The elders shared stories of hope and miracles long forgotten. And even Aram, who had once been cruel, knelt before the 4 friends and whispered a prayer from the depths of his heart. Word of the miracle spread to neighboring villages. People traveled from far and wide, not just to see the tree, but to witness the courage, faith, and protection that had saved 4 lives. Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima shared their story openly, teaching others that true courage was trusting in Jesus, even when the end seemed near. Days turned into weeks, and the village continued to thrive in a new light. The tree remained in the square, not as a symbol of fear, but as a reminder of hope. And every evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains and the desert glowed in gold, the villagers would remember the night when death was defeated by faith, when love was stronger than fear, and when Jesus performed a miracle no one could explain. Aram, looking at his friends under the starlit sky, whispered, "We were not alone. He never left us." Ladan smiled softly. "And now, we carry his light wherever we go." Kaveh nodded, feeling the warmth of faith in his chest. Nima simply lifted his hands to the heavens, saying silently, "Thank you, Jesus, for showing us your power, mercy, and love." The desert night was still, but it no longer felt empty. It was alive with hope, filled with the promise that no darkness could ever extinguish faith. And in the hearts of everyone who witnessed that miracle, a lesson remained forever: trust in the unseen, believe in the impossible, and never let fear control your life. Summary: in a small Iranian village, 4 Christians, Aram, Ladan, Kaveh, and Nima, were captured and hanged from a tree, facing certain death. But in a moment no one could explain, Jesus performed a miraculous intervention. The ropes could not hold them, the tree seemed to protect them, and they hovered above the ground, untouched. Witnessing this impossible miracle, the villagers' fear turned into awe and faith. Even the cruel executioner was shaken, realizing the power of divine protection. The friends' unwavering trust in Jesus inspired the entire village, leaving a lasting message of hope, courage, and belief in the impossible. Moral lesson: faith and trust in Jesus can overcome fear, danger, and even death. True courage is believing in Him, even when hope seems lost. Miracles happen when hearts are open, and faith can inspire not only personal salvation but transform the lives of others around you. The end.